People who end up in toxic relationships and victims of addiction have something very important in common. They have developed a lot of defense mechanisms. We develop defense mechanisms in childhood when something horrible happens to us and we don't know how to handle it. For example, a young child is overwhelmed with sadness or anger, but no one comforts him or helps them regulate. No one accepts them in these experiences. No one offers them constructive explanations of what is happening, and no one gives them emotional safety. This is when a child learns that certain emotions are too dangerous and that certain aspects of their personality are completely unacceptable. A child feels, if I feel this way, I risk connection, and this is too threatening. Defense mechanisms help us to survive in the moment because something is too traumatic and our brains cannot handle it. At the same time, defense mechanisms are ways of suppressing certain emotions and parts of the psyche. On a long-term basis, defense mechanisms can be very problematic. Suppressing takes a lot of energy and makes us tired, and this can also lead in depression. When there are parts of ourselves that we deny, we are conflicted. We don't really know who we are, what we need, and what we want. We can't be fully authentic, and people around us can sense that. Another consequence is the fact that defense mechanisms make it hard to be in touch with reality, and this is particularly relevant for people getting stuck in toxic relationships. Victims of toxic relationships get lost in their defense mechanisms and can't face the reality the way it is. Very often they get trapped in denial and say things like, "It's not really that bad," or "This happens in every family." Or they dissociate. We normally dissociate when we feel endangered. Our sympathetic nervous system is activated. However, it's not possible to fight or flee. So dissociation is a psychological process in which a person becomes disconnected from their thoughts, feelings, memories, body, or surroundings. It is an altered state of consciousness. It's like the mind temporarily splits off or distances itself from experience, often as a way to cope with stress and overwhelm. In simple terms, your mind disconnects to protect you. This can feel like spacing out or zoning out, feeling detached from your body, like watching yourself from outside, not remembering parts of an event, and feeling emotionally numb. The victim's decision to leave is a process. Leaving itself is a process. Just like violence or abuse is almost always a process, a gradual and often deliberate strategy. It's very hard for women to find the strength to leave because prolonged humiliation and abuse drain enormous amounts of energy. She has already used everything she has just to survive, relying on countless survival strategies to get through each day. Guilt and shame are paralyzing, especially if others have warned you before, such as parents and friends, that the relationship would not work. So she feels too ashamed to seek support, afraid of hearing, "We told you so." There is one more factor that people are seldom aware of, and this is hormonal addiction. Toxic relationships create powerful biological and hormonal processes that create a form of chemical dependency. In these relationships, the body becomes caught in a repeated cycle of stress, fear, relief, and reward. Each phase triggers different neurochemicals, and together they form a potent internal drug cocktail that the nervous system can become addicted to. During the so-called honeymoon phase, when the abusive partner suddenly becomes loving, apologetic, or attentive, the brain releases dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with reward, pleasure, and motivation. Dopamine creates feelings of hope, attachment, and anticipation. This intermittent reward is especially powerful. In fact, unpredictable rewards strengthen addiction more than consistent ones. The brain starts craving these brief moments of warmth and connection. As tension builds and conflict escalates, the body shifts into survival mode. Adrenaline and cortisol are released, increasing heart rate and alertness. This creates a state of hyperarousal. The person becomes intensely focused on the partner's moods and behaviors, and the relationship begins to feel urgent and all-consuming. When abuse and emotional pain occurs, the brain often releases endorphins, the body's natural painkillers. Endorphins numb emotional and physical suffering and can create a strange sense of calm and relief. This relief can paradoxically deepen attachment because the body associates the abusive cycle with both pain and soothing. Over time, the repeated cycle, stress chemicals followed by reward chemicals followed by numbing chemicals, creates a powerful hormonal cocktail. The nervous system becomes conditioned to it. The highs feel euphoric and the lows feel unbearable. The person may unconsciously crave the next good moment, much like an addict waiting for the next dose. This is why leaving can feel not only emotionally painful, but physically destabilizing. The body goes into something similar to withdrawal, anxiety, longing, confusion, and craving. The mixture of violence and love is the most effective way to break a person's psyche. Toxic relationships are not just bad choices or weak willpower. They can function like a biochemical addiction, driven by powerful neurohormonal processes that make separation extremely difficult, even when the person knows the relationship is harmful. I hope you learned something new. Let me know what you think in the comments.